So welcome everyone. Today we have a short class where we're going to be focusing on the opportunities again, once again, the opportunities, because that will be the main element that you will be probably presenting this coming Saturday when we will be meeting. So this Saturday we will be meeting exactly the same way we met last week, at the exact same time we met last week. But instead of presenting a case that I'm giving you and then you have to adapt, this time you're presenting Playita. So obviously, the presentation of Playita will be exactly a month after. You know, we're talking exactly as of exactly time hours a month after, and so it's a month early. So this is not going to be graded because obviously a month early, it would be probably half of the job. Some people may have a third, some people may have two-thirds. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I get to see what you've done and just to make sure that you have opportunities where opportunities need to be and all these different things. So what I would like to do is very quickly jump to sharing the document that I sent you last Friday night. So hopefully you've had all a chance to look at it. Um, this document, oh no, I didn't send it last Friday. I sent it maybe Sunday night. Anyway, either Sunday night or Monday. And so it's this document that discusses elements that you should, I would say probably half of the students probably will look at this and say, oh, it makes total sense now that you've done the Valley Hive, that you've done all of this. If half of the student makes sense, hopefully this half is distributed across the groups, the four groups, and therefore everyone has a number of people that understand those elements. So what I did is I made what I would say is a summary of what one could have had when discussing the Valley Hive. And I made sure to make them separated in terms of opportunities which are only strategical versus discussing opportunities which are tactical. That's a very important element. It's not as easy as it may sound. It's a mistake that 95% of the students make, and it's a mistake that eventually I would like for you not to make for the 14th of March. So the opportunity of the 14th of February is to make sure that this is clear. But instead of just telling you this on Saturday, I want to insist on this a little bit earlier so you see the difference. So going back to the Valley Hive, let's say there were a bunch of opportunities. One was the discussion on the fact that they were growing sales online. Another one was that sweeteners were becoming trendy and people were looking at different sweeteners than the traditional sugar. So in this situation, again, when I'm discussing those opportunities, I am not saying what the company should do or what the musician should do. So you should not be talking about what the musician should do. It's just what is changing that one could take advantage of. So only facts. Opportunities are facts. Ideas are just directions, broad, narrow, that one could talk about. So the you want to be as long term as broad as possible, as wide as possible. And here we're talking about all kinds of sweeteners. So honey would be one sweetener that could be proposed as a non-sugar-based sweetener. Then the fact that honey is more and more increasingly regarded as some kind of medicine that people could be consuming in connection with other spices or whatever in order to gain some benefits is a trend, a fact that is growing. And obviously, all the sources that I have here will sound good, could be real, but they are not real. I just made them up for the sake of having something that looks legitimate. Um, so that way you know what I mean by having sources. You cannot not have sources. You don't want sources from the 70s because, or from even 10 years ago. It's too old. So you want things that maybe depending on the industry, it may vary. I mean, if you're selling potato chips, maybe 2 years ago, sources that may be fine. But if you're talking about the music industry or the technology industry, you would want to be much more recent when talking about data and changes. So the other one is and I just buried it in there, the concept of flavoring that is creating some dramatic change in the food and beverage industries that, when actually integrated to a traditional product, flavoring can increase the sales up to 30% or more, according to some research. Um, Packaging innovation, and that's also very true. That has been the case for so many years that new packaging, new material used in packaging have a tremendous impact on the market. And so that's almost a given that you would see in many SWOT for the opportunity section. Then another one which talk about the fact that there's certain flavors that people really like, chocolate and peanut butter. And then another one talks about the fact that cartoon characters have a very significant impact on selling products, food and beverages for kids. So how many do I have? I have one, two, three. Wait a minute. One, two, three, four, five, six. Oh, that's a good number. So six, it's kind of like I would say once you have more than five, you're looking like better. So five is the minimum. More than five, it's starting to sound strong. So I have six here. They're all strategic. Why are they all strategic? Because the outcome of those, so listen to this, is very important. Because the outcome of those opportunities are not tactical, which means that you're not going to hire a model, you're not going to buy an ad on the radio. All of the outcome of these opportunities create a strategy, create a long-term direction. So if I go back to them, just for the sake of discussion, growth of the online sales. So why is this strategic? Because it would mean that you change your distribution channel. Maybe you go online where you're not going online. Maybe you're going more online. So this is not a short term. It's not something you can change overnight. It's a long term change to build your business towards more of an online platform or increasing your online platform. It's a long term. Some businesses may take 3 months to do that. Some businesses may take 3 years to do that. Depending on the businesses, the industry, there's a variation, but it's never short term. Rising demand for natural sweeteners. So honey is one of them, and therefore would be something to do with probably the way you present the product, the way you package the product, the way you promote the product. So that would be also a long-term commitment in order to build honey as the next best sweetener. Okay, so that's not a short term. The health benefits of honey. So turning honey into some kind of natural medicine. Um, that's, I mean, you could take, this is a, because obviously there's so many chemical industries that trying for everyone not to use anything natural. You're fighting against the biggest businesses that exist in the world. Even the music industry is smaller, and most of those businesses, you would be suffering from the difficulty of trying to promote something. It's almost the job of the government, educate. So that would be a very long-term investment again. So these would not be short term. Yes, Casey.
Um, I guess and how this relates to Plato. I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, this is obvious because it might not be, but like, let's say, uh, just using, let's just ban it as an example, right? Like, oh, yo, you're not selling your, um, you're not getting traction, say, on your sales, or maybe you don't have as many people coming out to your shows.
Yes,
Okay, an example would then be, okay, uh, I'll just use social media as an example because
yes,
that's essentially a marketing platform, right? Or one of
yes.
them. So then if you said, okay, well, oh, it looks like you're not posting a lot, or maybe you're not posting at the right times. If you said, okay, if you strategically targeted certain things within this, you would then see us like, is it that easy as far as what I'm thinking, as far as like, or is there a
Well,
catch?
the problem is what you're telling us right now are IDs, and you're not telling us opportunities. And so I give you an example. The next group that will be presenting the past client will be presenting a client called Harp Core. Harp Core was a band like play guitar, and they came to us like all the bands. almost all. We had one client that was very rich, but everybody else was is usually very poor. And they had no money.
mm,
And they were active on social media, much more active than Playita, for example, much more active than average. So
right.
for us to tell them that you should be active on social media was telling them something that they were already doing a lot, increasingly doing month to month, and very
Mm,
aware and very good at doing. So therefore, we were wasting our time to tell them something they already knew and they didn't totally need help on. Um, most a client needed help with this, but Arcor was not one of them. So I'm not kidding you when I tell you that maybe a week before it was the students were going to present to Arcor, they had
yeah.
nothing, nothing, no presentation. The presentation was a C minus base case scenario because they had no opportunities and they didn't know what to do for Arcor. And they kept going back to the drawing board, they kept going back to the research. And then suddenly they came, and I don't want to be doing a spoil of the groups that's going to be presenting. Hopefully they hear me and they pay attention. But what happens is they start realizing that this band, their music was very different, in some ways strange, and therefore it didn't fit exactly in what they are trying to do. They are trying to do concerts, and the students, since day one, they thought that this band really belonged to Las Vegas, sort of circus, or a show called Blue or some fringe eccentric gig that they could do in Vegas, but that was insulting to say that to the client, so they hold it themselves to say that. But that's what they wanted to say. It's like, you seem to be good enough just for this. Until the students started looking at the interview again and again and again, and then they came back to me and said, "Professor, it's very strange what we can tell you, but the clients, they really love the music, and that's their number one thing, the music." But then we also realized that their second hobby, pretty much as much love as the music, was bodybuilding. And then, crazy enough, they also have another interest, which is manga, manga cartoon. And they're not just liking it. This is something that they've really loved all their life, and it's very important in their life.
Mm,
And so what we're going to tell you is crazy, but we just want to pitch it to you. There's 1 week left. We know we're going to get a C minus, maybe probably a D, but we just want to pitch this because we have nothing else. And here was the opportunity. They said manga as an industry is growing by 20% a year. In
mm,
fact, 30% in the past 3 years. Two, manga have as music, but there's no major musician in the manga industry. However, people who listen to the manga have a higher brand loyalty for manga and manga musicians than they have for the music industry in comparison. Three, manga cartoons are looking for more eccentric style of music than the traditional things that you would find. It's sort of like video games, but even a little different than video
right.
games. So you see, so they started building a bunch of opportunities that were very interesting, very deep. And then they came back and said, so therefore the strategy is for the client to focus on making music for the manga industry. And eventually, that's all we have in our hats of tricks. We only have one, but we think it's a perfect match for the client. And in addition, which was interesting, was the fact that the number one production of manga is Japan. The number one
Mm,
consumer of manga is Japan. The number two
mm,
is America in production and consumption. The number three is France in production and consumption and production. And though the band was made of French people who lived in the United States. So it was perfect because they were double dipping. They were double dipping by being French, and that way they could
mm,
expand. So that was a, therefore you could put another dot of opportunity. France and America combine makes I forgot what it was, but 60% of the mega consumption in the world. You just put in there source date. And they knew that the client would like this idea. They were hoping he would like this idea. When they presented to the client, you know what happened?
What?
One of the main artists started crying and said it's the craziest thing because that's like exactly what we should be doing. We actually never thought about it. We're going to
Mm,
stop instantly everything we're doing, and that's what we're going to do. And that's what they did right after. But
mm,
then that was very close to COVID,
mm.
and that's a different story. And then COVID came and it screwed them up. And unfortunately, they were um, people that were married in that band and they divorced and all that because COVID was pretty brutal on couples and married people and so forth. And so it destroyed that band. But anyhow, they were working on it in the first few months that because we delivered this in December 2018, and so they had 1 year and they started working on it, and then their business started growing and doing extremely well because it was a perfect match. But what I'm trying to say is the student found this because they finally found some kind of elements which was very relevant for the client in trying to be something unique in this world and bringing a value to consumers, but by really identifying the consumer that would be the right consumer for them and not trying to be, they were trying to make rock and roll. And
Right.
the issue with rock and roll, in fact, that was in the threat, is sales of rock and roll is going down. Concerts of rock and roll was going down. And making money in rock and roll and all this was going down. So they were going in a direction there was less and less opportunities. Versus the manga, there was more and more opportunities.
So it's more of it. I guess it's sound cheesy. It's like Shark Tank, right? When they all go in there, it's a here's my product, here's how it's going to make something better that's already out into the market or something like that. So it would be more of like if they weren't doing Instagram, TikTok, that's more of like that's one piece, that's one avenue. You could totally say, hey, there are there are bands that if you do this and this, they've seen this kind of growth. You can attach those numbers, but it's not a unique idea
No,
that will push them forward. It's just
no.
something to add to it. The TikTok, so the social media aspect as an example is just something that helps aid in the opportunity.
Yes. When in 2016, I pitched to MIA students that they should be using TikTok to promote the musician, they laughed at me. But at that time, it was disruptive to use TikTok in the music industry because
Mm,
almost nobody did. But now everybody does. Uh, it's like buying a car, owning a phone, and drinking water. It's like everybody does that. So you cannot say that doing social media makes you disruptive. Now, what you have to say is what you do about social media that makes you disruptive.
right,
And so the opportunity is not social media, is something in social media that would be disruptive for the specific things that the client is trying to do.
right.
And so that's
Okay.
what's becoming very difficult is that, and it is very realistic. And this is what I just wrote a reference letter 2 hours ago for a student that was in my class 3 years ago, and she was doing an MBA in Europe, and she asked me to write a reference letter for the client project that we did 3 years ago because in Europe they think it's really a cool thing and they want to validate this so she can get promoted in the MBA. And
Mm,
it's the same thing. The thing that I'm teaching are not just case simulation, Harvard case study, That's the reality of being in business is everybody is right there and everybody's looking at the world and saying either the half, the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. And it's all
mhm.
perception of what you want to do about what you have. And you have to
Right,
do something that is better than what everybody else is doing for a specific group of customers. So you have to
right.
identify. So that's why identifying the manga industry that was a perfect fit for that client, for everything that was about this client, and the fact that it was growing and they had the music style. And we will see this because hopefully the group, I didn't spoil the hardcore group, they're gonna have to come and repeat all of this with their style and make sure it's translated to everyone, you will hear it again. And that's the trigger for you to understand. In the music, it's the same. It's just another product that you're selling. And therefore, you have to come up with a solution with that product that is disruptive. What is it that you're disrupting? So you're absolutely correct when you say it's like Shark Tank. A shark will never invest in a product if there's no level of disruption for what this product is doing compared
Hmm.
to the existing product for a specific group of
Hmm.
customers at a price which is the right price too. Because if it's too expensive, it may be the best product, but it's too expensive, people won't buy it. I mean,
Yeah, like
yeah,
what's that sponge? Uh, that is it Sponge Daddy or something like,
yeah,
and it's just all it is a sponge just designed differently.
yes. If it suddenly does something, I mean, the last month, I was in Dallas and with my daughter, we were on innovation of the horse industry because we designed a backpack for the horse industry. And there
Hmm.
was 25,000 product that was competing and we won. How did we win? Is because our backpack is the best one by far. If you have a horse, every other backpack is obsolete.
Hmm.
My daughter is right now in Florida in the biggest horse show in Palm Beach, and she's getting accolades and so forth because this backpack just de destroy every other backpack because of what we did. But we didn't
Hmm.
design a backpack based on what we thought was good, is we designed it based on the problems that we saw people having with the existing backpack. So we came up with solution on that backpack that makes every other product just worthless.
Right.
And so you can do this. And I started this a year and a half ago. I knew nothing about backpack. I've never done anything in the backpack industry. But it's the same thing, is you just look at everything and look at it from a new eye, but from the eye of who you're trying to solve the problem. So here, before you come up with an opportunity, is you have to identify who this band is going to satisfy.
Hmm.
And then define who they want to satisfy, and then find the people that they're trying to satisfy, who they like, and what is missing. And then see if that band can be this missing piece coming up with this. And then you use the social media to communicate it.
Right.
So thank you for your Q&A case
Yeah, it
because that
makes
helps
it makes
everybody.
sense. Yeah, it makes a lot more sense. So to kind of because yeah, it sounds like what I said at the beginning would be something, but it's just a tool
It's
to
just a tool.
aid. You could take a band going, a band needs to go on tour, or a band maybe
Needs
they're,
merch.
or oh well, wait, here's
But
another one, right? You could go the other way, and maybe a band is touring too much. Maybe they're oversaturating the
yeah,
market,
exactly.
right? And then okay, well, people are tired of seeing your face, right? Or whatever, So yeah, it can go both ways. So
So you don't want to ignore the tool, but you don't want to think that because you're telling them here are the tools, and then you're telling them what are the tools, define the tools, tell them what they should be doing with the tools, that's insufficient. Is it even 50% of the job? Probably not even because they have no directions. You should have merch. I'm a good person because I'm telling you you should have merch. Wow, but
uh,
that's, oh, you should have TikTok, or you should have Instagram, you should have a website. Oh, I'm a good guy because I'm telling you you should have a website. I'm a good guy because you should have a EP. I'm a good guy because you should be touring. No, these are the obvious things. Is you're still missing the who is it for? Why would they care? What do they want that they don't have? And how are you going to build this momentum towards this milestone one, milestone two, milestone three, and grow your business? Do you know what I'm saying? So when, for example, when we made that backpack, we didn't just made a backpack and parade. This backpack is a piece in a puzzle that we're constructing, and it's strategically from the backpack that we are building the brand. Because we knew from the backpack, then we could be connecting the accessories that's going to go with it, and then we could
right.
build from the backpack the because the reality is I'm doing this with my daughter. She's 24 years old and she loves fashion and she wanted to make shirts. I said, you're never going to succeed just making shirts. There's billions of shirts and everybody's cheaper, and that's what they do. They try to be the cheapest, 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 cheapest.
Mm.
And I said, no, we need to build a brand that is totally disruptive. And from this, people will love the brand and then buy the other things that come with it, where your product doesn't have to be as disruptive because a shirt is a shirt, a pants is a pants, right? A belt is a belt. But you will come up with a brand that's supported with this. Once you have a brand, then you can start selling the other thing because the people will associate with the brand from a unique product. We can be unique with the backpack. So let's focus on that, the uniqueness. So that's what it is here is you have to find what can they do to have a point of uniqueness. When the hardcore people will come and present, if they understood the difficulty that it was to build and the fact that we had to go around the bush and find this manga thing, and they presented sort of what I was trying to express, you will see that it's not straightforward. Is you have to scratch your head and really understand the client and make a mix between all of this, you know.
Mm.
Um, it's not like 50 years ago where you're just a band and you have character and your music is good and then you succeed. This here you have to come up with a concept, I don't know, like the Spice Girl sort of thing. This needs to fit something.
Oh, right.
So So that's why here, each one of those opportunities here, I'm not saying something like posting on Tuesday night, TikTok has 25% more views, Instagram is Friday afternoon. If I was to say Friday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. is the best time to post Instagram versus TikTok. It's Tuesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Will these be opportunities? Yeah. But the problem is they're not strategic, they're tactical. Because they tell you when you post your TikTok and your Instagram, it's insufficient. It's a detail. Should we have male, I don't know, models or female models, and all this? These are details, and therefore details are not too helpful at this stage. So from these, I made sure also to just put a very brief IDs. You see, the IDs is what you need to be careful of because that's what everybody's good at, but the problem is it's oftentimes insufficient. So here I've wrote some IDs and I've wrote three IDs and they can be related to the opportunities and eventually you can see that they also relate to the strategies, but it's like a simple person that someone that, just thinks simply as an is not educated in business and they would be thinking in simple terms like develop a flavored honey variety to boost the sales and encourage new occasions of consumption. That's an idea. Two is explore innovative packaging to increase a product that would be more easy to consume and you could consume while you walk or do something. Or use fun cartoon characters so we could be starting to sell to kids. We didn't sell much to kids and now we could be starting to kids. So these 99% of the time, students will tell me these are our strategies. These are our opportunities. In fact, in the class, most of your draft were exactly like this. You stated your opportunities and strategies as ideas. And I just said, be careful. They have to be facts and they have to be more strategic as much as possible. And so that's why I've wrote this, is that way it's kind of your reference because you've done the exercise. You've wrote your draft, you did the Valley Hive. You can sort of understand what this is about and relate to it. It's like your go-to places to go back to what things needs to be. And then I wrote the strategies there. So the strategies are new product development, product and packaging strategy, market development. So market development means you go for a new group of customers with the same product. Actually, that was in the quiz today. And so and focus strategy that was in the quiz today. So therefore, when you go for a specific group of customers and it's very niche, it's not a wide group of customers, that becomes a strategy. So these are the correct strategical terms, and it's the outcome of these correct opportunities. So this document, I made it, and I'm hoping it's useful to you because I hope you can relate to it and see the connections between all of these. Um, so any questions on this? No? So just try to, between your group, kind of listen to each other And the exercise is extremely important because by understanding everything I'm trying to communicate and teach you in this class, it will make the next class 50% or more easier for you to do. So in some way, it is true that this class, the marketing class, is harder than the entrepreneurship class. But it's harder, the marketing class, because you have to really understand this concept of opportunity and business growth and strategies in order to go into the entrepreneurship class and essentially apply it in the next class. But if you don't understand it for this class, it becomes really challenging for the next class because then it's just another time that you have to understand it. So by May 10, I think 100% of the Maya students will understand everything of these. But the sooner you do, the easier your life is, essentially. Now, having said that, um, it is also easier, and you will see, you will find opportunities in the next class, probably in one day. And it won't be that difficult because in the next class, you're going to have to come up with the business that you want to support. So you're going to have to create this business. So you're going to have to come up with the opportunity in order to build this business. You will see that having done this exercise, you're going to find it easier. Why? Because it's a lot harder to find opportunities for someone else than to find it just for yourself to create your own business. It's people that are in construction oftentimes will tell you it's a lot harder to remodel a home, demo the home and reconstruct the home than it is to build a home from scratch. People that restore classic cars, they will tell you this. It's a lot harder to restore a classic car than to build a kit car, for example, because it's this constructing from something that already exists has many more complications. So this is why that's also more difficult exercise because here you have this client, you haven't selected the client, you are given all this client, and this client is sort of the typical band, and they're not really clear about what they do, where do they go, and all those different things. And so that makes it a lot harder to identify those gaps of what they could be serving. But that's why you have to do the research. That's why you have to go back to the interview. That's why it's important that you think about the next time, which I think is next Wednesday, that we will meet the client again in order to see what you're going to tell me on Saturday if these are good or not so good things to test and further question the client next Wednesday in order to go deeper. It's like the students didn't pick up the thing about the bodybuilding from the first meeting. They didn't pick up the thing about the manga interest from the first meeting. They picked this from the second meeting. And so that's what it is. It's suddenly now you realize like, wow, we have to go really deep. Now I see why this is not easy. Do you have any question on this? Or no?
I mean, I,
Yes.
I don't, but I do see where my confusion is with opportunity versus idea because
Okay.
it seems similar, but it's not because it's more so. I mean, I guess taking the band, like, how are you going to make it instead of like, oh, go do this. That's an idea. It's
Yes.
more of how is, oh, you like whatever it is, like, yeah, how are you going to make that um unique within that band or company?
Exactly. So I give you a tip that most of you will forget in the next class, and it's very likely to be a question in the quiz. Would be something like why ideas can be a problem for a business person. And the answer is because if you think in terms of ideas, it becomes something very subjective. Is what do I like? What do I think? What do I want to do?
Right.
Versus when you talk about opportunities, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the real world, the objective world of what people want. So, as a business person, you don't serve your needs, your dreams, your desires. You serve the one of the people you try to generate solution to their problems. So, you're not in
Right.
love with your ideas. With your solution, you're in love
Right.
with people's problems. And opportunities are therefore talking about problems. And therefore, you don't say, I'm Nikon, I'm in the camera industry. You say, no, 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 no. I'm a electronic company that make devices for people to share, to capture, to memorize, to communicate. And as
Mm-hmm.
Nikon, I will create a device where you can call people, you can send videos, you can have apps to pay your bills, and I will do all of that. Well, they didn't. Apple did it. And that's why right now Icon is 5,000 times smaller than they used to be, same as Canon and same as Sony and all these
Mm-hmm.
businesses, is
Mm-hmm.
because they saw themselves, they were in love with the solution, is we're making digital cameras. And so people are not buying them anymore because it's irrelevant what they do for most people. And now it's been so much water under the bridge. It's very difficult for them to jump to something new. So they miss the opportunities. And someone else
Mm-hmm.
took the opportunity. You know, when you think about it, Sears was one of the biggest company in America. How could Sears ever disappear? Well, because they were not in love with problems. They were in love with a solution. And so therefore that's what you do as a business person is you constantly think about problems and constantly you in fact your anxiety, your stress and depression is every time you open your eyes, all you see is problems and you love to solve them all. But the reality is there's only 24 hours and 7 days a week. So you have to pick the problem you want to solve. But most people, they don't see problems. Most people, they have a mentality of being an employee, which consists in helping someone who's found problems and you help them solve the problems that they've decided to solve and you contribute to that leadership of this person that found the problem. But a business owner is a person that is in love with problems, find the problem, has the leadership to carry the solutions to these problems. And the minute they're solving this problem, they are hate that solution because they can't wait to solve another problem with another solution. Sometimes artists are that way. Is you talk to them about this beautiful song that they have 4 years ago, 5 years, don't want to talk about it. They want to talk about what they're doing right now. Whatever they did that was a success doesn't touch them anymore because they are not in the love of their success. They are in the love of the production, the love of the creation. So if you understand this concept of the love of the creation, the love of the moment, is the love of being an entrepreneur is what am I doing right now? What problem I'm doing right now that I'm solving right now? Who am I satisfying right now? So this mentality that I'm trying to infuse you into you, and now you're just realizing this is cool. I like it. Man, it's hard. Professor, this is very hard. And it's I get it. It's harder to do it for someone else that I may
Yeah.
not be so inspired with, right? And so,
Right.
like, for example, Shark Tank. Every month, I get an email from Shark Tank, the production company, that asks me if I know someone that could be a good candidate. I've sent them a few candidates. These people go to Las Vegas, they review 2,000 of them. And at the end of the 2,000, they only pick 15. Who are the 15 that do they pick? The one that are really solving a problem, the one that sounds interesting, the one that present well, because it's entertainment, it's a show on TV. So they don't want someone that stutter or looks dirty or unattractive, not interesting. So it is very important to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they very much um, look for the people that are coming up with a solution, and it's obvious because these are very short shows. They don't want people to be not knowing what they are doing, right? So does that help you, Casey, and everybody else? Maybe start to see the mission, your mission, and take the suddenly um, feel the weight, sort of thing, feel the pressure, feel the reality of
Yeah.
the
No,
exercise.
that's a good yeah. If you're not a business owner, yeah, you're essentially executing someone else's ideas,
Yeah, exactly.
basically. Basically. Or
Yeah,
I mean, there is problem solving in that.
yes,
Uh, I mean, take like what I do. It's like, oh, something doesn't work. Okay, how am I going to make sure this happens for the weekend or something like
yeah.
that?
So
So,
it's manager.
or right. And so so there's that part that's good, but yeah, it's not, you're still at the end of the day, uh make, yeah, satisfying someone else's desires or goals. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it makes a lot more sense. And too bad I didn't ask you before this quiz, but that's
So again, going back to the source. So what you do in marketing, you try to satisfy someone. If there's only one thing you need to remember is this, is marketing is about satisfying someone. And opportunity are not your IDs. So you've seen those slides, and now they're starting to. Some people may be insulted because they got it from the first time, but not too many people get it the first time. So I'm sorry for those people. I do this eventually for everyone to get it, and now they're looking at this, and and next week when you're going to see it, you're going to say, enough, we got it now. That's okay. Facts, facts, facts. Opportunities are just facts. They are high level facts because we're looking at some directions we want for Playita. So on Saturday, that's essentially what I want to see is facts that will help Playita in the long run. What are the facts that will help Playita in the long run? Okay. And then now the other piece that is also, what is so the next tool that is very important is to understand the tool about the customers, how you look for the customers. So you look for the customers from the eye of what's called segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Okay. And so those three things are very important because you're doing segmentation, which consists in breaking people into segments, meaning certain characteristics to divide people. Targeting is you grouping them in what you would call like personas. So there's two groups they presented and they presented personas. So a target, a persona is the same thing. And positioning is what would be the image that you will make your brand in order to be the brand that those people that you're focusing on will be the one that they like. So by definition, it has to be STP. You first divide, then you group, and then you come up with an image. Okay? Now, STP is what's in the textbook, what the professor tells you, but what do business do? Do they do STP? Could they do TSP? So that could be an open-ended question. Could it be TSP? Could it be PST? Could it be TPS? And I see Charlie is shaking his head. No, no, no. And that's correct. What do you mean, Charlie?
You have to start with segmentation because you can't position yourself, first of all, unless you know who you're targeting. So it just kind of goes in the order. Each one's reliant on the previous segment or uh, step.
So it has to be STP, but in fact, it could be PST. PST, unfortunately, it's what most businesses do. Most businesses, what do they start with? And I give you, it starts with the I, after the I is a D, after the D is a E, after E is a A. Most businesses start with an ID. The minute you start with an ID, you become subjective. That's what I've been trying to ingrain in you. And if you become suggestive, therefore you're trying to solve the problem you think is important, the solution that you want to bring forward. So unfortunately, most businesses come up with the solution and then they push it through the customers. So then it's kind of a marketing which is more reactive than proactive. Proactive marketing is, you know what? I want to make some money. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm going to find something to make the most money as possible. Do you want to be in the music industry? Hell no. What do I want to be? I want to be a butcher because I found a way you can be making lots of money with butcher because people are becoming more meat lovers wherever you live. Where they live, they want meat, more meat, meat every day, meat for breakfast. That's it. You become a butcher. They want meat. I'm going to give them meat. And so that's the business mentality. Then you're going to say, but professor, don't you have a bit of passion and a bit of a dream, a bit of wanting to do something that you like? Of course you do. But the problem is if you're too much trying to do what you like, you end up doing PST. And if you do PST, you have to be good at, probably you have to go to church or something to gain, because it means you have to pray that everything you do will work. So PST is for the prayers. Is you just come up with a dream, then you unfold it, and you hope there's someone at the end of the tunnel. So that's why you have about 60, 70% of the businesses that fail. One of the biggest reason is because most businesses, they do PST. Do they even know, professor, that they do PST? No. Most people don't even know they're doing PST. Yeah, so they should be doing STP, which is you should look at satisfying someone first and finding who are the person you're satisfying, knowing them better than anyone else, and giving them what they want. Exactly. So it's always ST, because S is you divide the people, and T is you group them in the personas. So it's like, so you have to always do S, and it has to be S and T before T. But it could be positioning ST, which I said is the most common one. But I don't know the percentage, but maybe 90%. It's very common. But STP is the most likely to succeed. It's the safest one because you will be telling people that the brand, your image, what you mean is exactly what you know that they want to hear, right? So good salespeople, they actually do STP. Good salespeople, because you come and you say, "Oh, I really like to have a lot of space," and then they say, "Yes, space is so much better," and I really like to save on gas. Oh, that's the best thing, saving on gas. So here's the car you should buy. Then the next person comes, say, I want to really go fast. I don't want to have a lot of luggage. Oh, that's the best. The best is small cars that use a lot of gas. That's the car. And that's what they do is they go with the flow. They listen to you, and from what you say, they're going to direct you in one direction to another thing. So they're shaping you. And so when as a salesperson, when you're shaping by listening to the customers, understanding who they are, what do they want, then you can take advantage in directing them. And at the end of the day, you could also be honest and say, I don't have what you want. And therefore, I'm really sorry. I do not have what you want. I do not sell the car that you want. I have no cars like what you want on the lot right now, but I can advise you of another dealer which I think would have the car. This person might remember this and say, that was an honest person, and I will recommend this place because she was honest. So STP is the best way because you really put your feet in the shoe of the people that you're going to sell the product. Versus PST, the most important thing are you fit. My feet matters. My satisfaction matters, and that's a problem. But then you'll say, but professor, does it have to be 100% of the time STP? And the reality is no. In fact, I've wrote papers, research papers that, I mean, you can just Google my name, that I won prizes as most read in the world and so forth. And they were on this concept of STP and PST, where I was explaining that PST might be good in the art, for example, because in the art, you have to do the art that you want, or in the luxury. When you create a luxury brand, you're not trying to please someone specifically. There's a creative component, there's a design component, which is very unique to the designer. And so the designer is not trying to satisfy anyone. The designer is in the creativity, is in it, in her or his bubble. So if you look, and you've all looked at a catwalk, and you see those models dressed in a way that every model you look and you say, oh my God, it's terrible. Who wears that? Nobody will wear that, right? And that brand is not trying to satisfy anyone. That brand is creating somewhat of an art, somewhat of a unique piece, somewhat building the positioning of the brand by showing that this brand is in that fashion. It's not fashion, in fact. That brand is beyond fashion. It's forever fashion. It's a line. It's a collection. It's a collector product that's gonna people will talk about. It's a signature. Okay, so PST exists in rare cases, and I think if you're a musician, um, you need to. So then you're gonna say, but you confuse the heck out of us because you say it should be STP, and now you say there could be some PST, and obviously this is the music industry. And then I tell you it should be PSTP, maybe, which is that as a musician, you come up with what you think it should be. but you do not ignore the customers. So you do my positioning is this, but I'm not egocentric, narcissistic, and therefore I'm going to look at the market. STP, and then you do so it's a PST repeat. What you do is you reposition after you've done your S and T. So then you're aware of who you're selling. So imagine explaining this to play guitar. Their head's going to fall out of their body because it's too much. But you're the master. That's why you're getting a master. Is you're going to become the master of the PST repeat. And that's what you're going to do for Playita. Find what's their positioning right now, find who are their customers and where they should go, and then create the new positioning of Playita and explain to them what they need to do for the next 2 years, 3 years in order to build this new repositioning from the original positioning, which was not very clear right now. And they don't, if you ask them what's their position, they don't know. Remember when someone asked the question, who are your audience? Who's your audience? And I remember there was some one of the gentlemen that lives in Santa Barbara or whatever, he said, "Oh, it's everybody, you know, everybody. You cannot have a target that is everybody. That doesn't exist unless you're the electricity company. Maybe you can do that, but otherwise, you don't. And even the electricity company, I'm not totally sure. So very quickly, we have just 5 minutes left. I show you a visual just because there was words and me speaking. So visual is like this: is imagine you have all of this different group of people, and what you try to do is say, let's segment. So segment, you divide them, and then you start to group them. So you say people, so you could say um, there's people of different ages, the 0 to 10, the 11 to 20, the 21 to 30, and so forth. And then you go, well, and there's different zip codes, and then there's different income, and then there's different interests. And then you look at all of these characteristics and you say, well, which one really matters to my business? Is it the age? Maybe not. Is it the maybe the gender, the income, the social class, the attitudes, the interests, the hobbies, the political perspective, whatever it is, the religion, the language, whatever. And you start looking at all of these characteristics. So there's many characteristics. There's almost an infinite number of characteristics. So that's what's very difficult to do a good segmentation, you do not want to use random characteristics because you want to see which of the characteristics, and remember that word, are the most salient. So that's what the business industry uses is the word salient. What are the salient characteristics? Meaning the relevant, important, critical, central characteristics, the salient characteristics. Because the more characteristics you have and you add in explaining your customer, the more you make it complicated. So the idea is that if you plot all of these people, you end up with this. Let's say for the I don't know the car market. So you have status and dependable. And so there's people that want more status and people that want more dependable. And then you have people that want both. But then you say, well, let's throw income. High income, medium income, lower income. And suddenly now you're starting to do targeting because you're combining multiple characteristics, status, reliability, and income. So you have three targets. But then you say these three targets are not enough. So then you could ask, add gender, for example, men and women, let's say. So you have two, young and old, right? And then you start the more characteristics you give, the smaller your target's going to become. So then if you keep adding characteristics, you do what's called micro segmentation. The advantage of micro segmentation is you start having a very specific customer, and so it's easier to satisfy a specific customer because you get to know it better and better by having it more and more specific. The problem of micro segments is they are tend to be small, and therefore you have a business which is very narcissistic, very small, looking at a small market. So you have to have a balance between what's too small and what's too big. And this is what's important is you need to understand the concept of concentration and differentiation. Concentration means that you have one product for multiple targets because they are not so different. So you say the the different social class. is not the issue. We see 10 different social class, and there's three social class that would be buying the product. So we group these three social class, or maybe three states. New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, and California are states where we could be selling the product. There's not enough differences between these states. They're going to make one product for each one of those states. However, if you see that these states are very different, and then you want to make one product for each one of these states and specialize the product per state, this is called differentiation. Small businesses in general should be doing differentiation because you become more special for a specific group. So your group is smaller, but you're a small business. So what you do is you specialize, you become the expert for satisfying that smaller group of customers. And as you become more specialized in satisfying them, you increase your satisfaction. And from this group, you can start building. If you're a large corporation, Nestle, if you're Nestle, you don't want to be doing specialty chocolate. If you're Nestle, you do mass quality chocolate. Your chocolate don't have to be the best one in the world. They just have to be good enough to be okay for most people. Yes, Casey.
I have a question, but
Yes,
I don't want to hold everyone because it's 9 o'clock. Uh,
yes. But
I
I
just
try to
was
answer quick.
well, so what happens like when your target is everybody? Like, so for instance, like where I work, right, is a good example.
Yes.
At a church, you're targeting everybody uh equally almost, right? So I mean, I get the concept of,
Yeah.
how you have to target, and that makes total sense, but it just was kind of just
Yes. But
curious.
even in a church, depending, let's say if you're trying to get donation, you won't get the donation from equal donation from everybody. There's
Right,
people that may never give you, and there's people that may give you thousands. There may be people that give you coins, and there's people that may give you a
right.
check. So
Hmm.
once you know this, you need to be, can I say, conscious about it, and
Right,
therefore seek the different donation from the different group of people. And there's
right,
nothing wrong with this because we are not all equal. And these people, they won't give you money, but they will give you time. And so you need to
right.
respect those people as well, because these different group of people, you need to treat them differently. So even in a church, you have to differentiate. In fact, undifferentiated marketing is the weakest part and it's very rare. It just
Hmm.
exists. So I mention it, but
Hmm.
it's exists 0.001% of the time. So it exists.
Hmm.
Could it be in the quiz? Yes, as an option out of three options, but it's not the one that you will be using. Most likely, you will be using differentiated marketing for Playita. I mean, 99.9% chance. And you need to know, therefore, that you need to identify specific targets with specific offerings you're going to give to these people. So, in this situation, you may say, but remember, most of the project they present personas. They say persona one, persona two, persona three. So, in that situation, you are doing concentrated. The
Hmm.
concentrated strategy is you identify Playita as one business with three targets that you're going to serve at the same time. So it is possible, but you need to see what you do for each one of them. Sometimes,
Hmm.
um, so does that answer your question, Casey?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
So undifferentiated is if you're doing undifferentiated, most likely not doing it right, not optimizing what you could be doing. It reminds me, and I just finished with, I know it's 901, but it reminds me of a project I did in the 90s. I was doing a project for a shaving company, and we were inventing the new shaver, and it was in 92. And in 92, everybody wanted to add a blade to the shaver. And I remember in 92, I did some research and I found that the women were shaving more than before, than the 80s and the 70s, and they were borrowing their boyfriend or their husband shaver. And I remember I came forward and I said, we should be making a shaver for women. And that was the result of my research. And I remember the consulting team told me that I was not speaking correctly because there was not such a thing as a woman shaver. And so they gave up on that project. And then Gillette came with Venus, and obviously this became humongous. And my business that was helping at the time went bankrupt a few years after because they just missed the opportunity. Opportunities. So, what was the name of the opportunity? Opportunity was the time women shave has increased by X percent for the past 2 years. The number of women buying men shavers to use for their own, I forgot, I don't know, use trimming or whatever, has increased by X percentage. That's all I wrote. And then I created the product. I remember I made the shaver pink. It was not very creative, but I guess that's how they started. I took a main shaver and I just made it pink. And I gave it a name. I forgot what it was, Symphony or whatever. And um, they saw they was retarded. They were retarded because that was better than anything that anyone had done at the time. But so you have to think outside of the box. But it was not me being creative and having a dream. It was based on the data. The data was telling me that there's a change in the culture when it comes to who's using the shavers. Okay, so it's the same thing here. So obviously it's a big task for Saturday. Is you have to think about who are the customers for Playita, and then start thinking about the opportunities that these will be generating for the clients and how you're going to unfold it and all this. To be honest, it's very exciting. I think it's an exciting situation that you're in. I know you're challenged. That's why I also like to teach this class because I see the students' face at one time. You can see they're scared. They are like, it's kind of a, oh my God, can we do it? And going back to the drawing board and so forth. And then the groups will come up with ideas and it's going to be happening. And different speeds, different people, different speed. There may be Saturday, I think there will be one group out of four. That's my statistics usually. And then we'll build up from there. And at the end, I've always had four groups. If I have four groups, always had four groups that succeeded. But sometimes it's the night before kind of thing. Huh? So, so it's tough. All right. So see you on Saturday if you don't have any questions. And just come the same way with the allocated time. Come right on your time and leave right on your time. I'll try to make sure everybody has a decent amount of time. Sometimes there's a little overlaps. I'm sorry, last week there was 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, but we managed. So we'll try to do as good this week. Okay? Have a wonderful night. And I look forward to see. I'm very curious. I'm very excited and curious to see you. I'm looking forward to hear your opportunities and what you came up with.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Good
Thank
night.
Thank
you.
you,
Good night.
Professor.
Bye bye, everyone.